getting in a position where you don't have to feel stressed out about the financial piece of your business. Just even being able to take the numbers of where you're at currently, but then project out into the future. What is this going to look like on the long-term trajectory, and how much more revenue do we have to bring in to actually offset those extra costs?
What I'm doing every single week is I'm transferring $400 a week. That doesn't feel like very much.
Yeah.
And to just keep doing that. And I'm looking at our tax account now, and I'm like, oh baby, like bring on those quarterlies. I'm like ready to direct deposit right from that account, right? We're not touching it for anything else. It's straight up, it's for taxes. So that feels good. And it's like, finally we have a good practice and a good rhythm for that, so that we don't end up getting totally screwed.
If you're a profitable company, you're going to have that extra cash flow to either reinvest in the business or use on the personal side. And it's a great position to be in. When you're always in a cash flow negative situation, or payroll's such a huge stress every single pay period, then you're in this cycle of like hamster wheel where you can't get off the hamster wheel and you feel really stuck. And it's so crucial to think about profit as your bottom line. That's the number that we need to really focus on, especially as you're actively running the business. And revenue, great. It's a fun vanity metric, but it doesn't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things.
Did you know that most video producers think they're running a business, but they're actually running an expensive hobby that pays them a salary? On episode 459 of the podcast, we're talking about why I had 9 employees but 0 profit, and the painful $28,000 tax surprise that changed everything about how we run this business. Also, we cover the hamster wheel trap that keeps video producers broke despite bringing in 6 figures, and the simple profit margin formula that will break you free. And then finally, how to set up contractor accounts in tax buckets so that you never get blindsided by expenses again, and the 70-30 payment strategy that has transformed cash flow. All that and so much more on today's episode. What is up, my friend? Hey, welcome to another episode of the show. I'm so excited that you're here because today we get to talk about taxes and money and finances and profit margin. All the things that, as a creative, as a filmmaker, these are the things that drive us, right? These are the things. No, but here's what's real is if we don't figure these things out and we don't spend time and energy working through them, then we won't be able to do this work, and we'll owe a lot of money to the government, and it won't be good. So I want you to be weller equipped. Yes, weller equipped. I want you to be more equipped in the business side of this business, and we got to talk about the unsexy stuff, finances, but it's going to be great. You're going to be great. You're going to be okay. We're going to get through this together, and you're going to be glad that we get there. If you are in early stages, I shouldn't even say early, but if you are in the early stages of building this video production business, I have a workshop where I've taken my 20 plus years of running my own video production business, jam-packed it into a workshop where you can watch it. It's completely free. It is my gift for you for watching or listening to this show. Access it. Learn from it, learn from my mistakes, fail forward, fail faster by learning from somebody who has been in the trenches for a long time running my own video production business. You can access the free workshop at studiosherpas.com/workshop and go do that, or watch this episode and then go do that, or vice versa. But thank you, you're welcome, etc., etc. I'm glad you're here. This is good. This is time that we get to work on our business. Think about the things inside of our business that might need to change, might need to tweak. So thank you for taking the time to invest in yourself so that you can do much more of this work and make a bigger, more impactful impact on the world. Okay, let's do it. Roll the tape. Here we go.
What is up, my friend? Welcome to another episode of the show. Today with me is Deb Meyer, who is the founder of Worthy Nest, and she is host of the Beyond Budgets podcast and also author of Redefining Family Wealth. Deb, super excited to have you on the show today. What is up?
Oh, what is up? It's a beautiful summer day, and I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
It is a beautiful summer day. My family, everybody, and the neighbor kids, they're all outside enjoying the pool. And here we are.
Recording.
It's all right. I'm just a few steps away.
It just started raining here, so.
Oh, man.
But it's going to go quickly. It's, those southern afternoon storms.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's just like Florida rain is like, oh, yeah, rain 2 minutes. Now we're back to the things. Okay. So you are a, in the best way possible, like finance nerd.
Yes.
Counting money, like numbers, all of the things, CFP, CPA, CEPA,
yeah.
probably more things, a lot of credentials. Somebody that is running a video production business, maybe they're just starting out, maybe they've been doing this a long time. What is, I'm sure you've talked to so many, countless business owners. What do you say some of the biggest pitfalls that we don't even know that we're doing or not doing? What comes to mind?
Yeah, I would say when you're first starting out, or even if you're an established video business owner, the idea here is you need a trusted advisor. So getting someone in your corner that understands finance is going to be crucial to your success. Even if you are great at your skill, which is video production, there's a lot that goes on as an entrepreneur where you have to kind of shift gears, shift hats. And at least what I've noticed, a lot of entrepreneurs don't necessarily love numbers. They don't love the planning, but they need to go to someone who does love numbers and who understands the nuances, who can help explain it in more simple terms. So I would say that's first and foremost, have a trusted CPA, accountant, bookkeeper, someone that's going to understand the numbers and help you interpret them to make good business decisions. The other thing that I think a lot of people get confused about, you hear in the personal finance realm, build an emergency fund, have some extra cash, rainy day, things like that. But you don't always hear that in the business side as much. And I think it's really important as you're growing that business to have a mindset of like, okay, whatever I'm doing on the personal finance side, I should also probably be doing in some form on the business side. So we don't necessarily have to call it an emergency fund, but it could just be a nice cash cushion that can help you withstand those entrepreneurial journeys. Because a lot of people, you go from really great times financially in the business, and then there's some really dry times as well. And
can't relate.
Yeah. So just being able to withstand those drier times and have some shortfall to fall back on is really important.
Yeah, I remember during COVID when we were applying for the PPP and the EIDL, just all of that stuff. I just remember wishing so bad, man, what would life look like? What would business look like if we had a 6-month emergency fund? And man, I wish we would have saved money or the past 5 years so that we wouldn't be in such a jam, because in some cases it took a while to get access to that money. It was a tedious process to apply and all that stuff. So we were starving for cash. But then also in like more regular seasons of business, there are seasons that just like you said, it's like we hit the jackpot on all the clients, and then we do all the client work, and then it's like, 3 months later, we're done with all that client work, and we're like, we haven't been selling anything because we've been too busy with the projects. So where's our next paycheck coming from? Having some kind of a plan in place where you're like, you've got savings. But here's where, for the longest time we had a checking account. This is like our operating account for the business. And when a client would make a deposit, I'm like, cool, we just made $10,000, $20,000, whatever it was. And I would think that we had access to that cash
right away.
right? Because it's like, yeah, it's in the account. Okay, like let's buy a new camera. Let's get something, that we don't have.
Sure.
Help the entrepreneur that's this stupid industry that there's all the cool stuff you can buy, right? Yeah, I mean the cameras, the lenses, the widgets, like just so many neat things that we're just like, ooh. And then we also have convinced ourselves that if we only had that camera, we'd be able to book this kind of client, which is a total lie in most cases. So help this person, definitely me a long time ago. Maybe I'm not that far from that person, but how can we think different, or how can we protect ourselves from ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of it is just being true to who you are, right? Understanding that, like, okay, when I do get that paycheck, when I do get that big client deposit, what's my natural propensity? Is it to save it or is it to spend it? And a lot of us, from an early age have some kind of money personality. Like we know, generally speaking, okay, this person tends to spend it as soon as it's earned, or this person tends to sock it away for a rainy day. There might be some people in the middle, but usually they gravitate towards one end. And if you're one of those people that gravitates towards spending it, really finding someone who can hold you accountable to keeping something intact that is going to be that rainy day or long-term savings is crucial. So as I said in my first comment, just having that professional that's like monitoring the numbers with you, helping you stay accountable, and being that sounding board when you do say, hey, I want to invest in this equipment. Maybe they're the one saying, okay, do you really need that equipment? Is it a need or is it a want? Right. And maybe
those questions are so annoying.
I actually read this article recently. I don't know if you're familiar at all with Luke Burgess, his work, but he talks about mimetic desire. It's based on Rene Girard's work from several years ago. And in that, he's really focused on how what other people want often creates like the wants we generally have. And if you're able to kind of say, hey, is this truly a want of mine, or is it based on what I'm seeing from the outside looking in? Having that distinguishment is really important. So I'm generally a person that doesn't have like a lot of external wants. I don't know. I've always been more on the saving side, just personality wise, but at least for me, I've just found it easy to kind of say like, okay, is this a want? Is this a need? And is it truly a desire like coming from me that I think can really change the business trajectory? Or is it a desire that is something I'm seeing someone else do and they're successful? Because you can't always recreate, or you can't always, not, I guess, you can't ever recreate someone else's exact success, right? Even if you see someone doing it, killing it, doing awesome, they still go through rough patches from time to time. And just don't try to always emulate someone else. Yes, you can use people as mentors or guides, but you don't want to be trying to like drive in their same lane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, your story is different, your experience, your market, your niche, all of that stuff. It's like, just because somebody else is having success with it, doesn't mean that you're going to. And even if you do, it's probably going to take some time. So we can easily think that there's a magic bullet, and we all want to believe that there is this magic bullet. I think one of the things, having accountability, I'm just laughing because I'm thinking about the early conversations of having a CPA and the annoying question, like, do you guys really need that? Like, I'm just like, yeah, okay, well, maybe I really want it. So one of the questions that I end up like now, I just met with my producer this week, and I tasked him last week. I said, hey, make a wish list of the gear that you guys want, but think through the lens of like, what do we need versus what do we want? And then I also want you to be able to tell me like, how is this going to make us money or save us time?
Yes. Yes.
And when I started making those decisions long ago, because when I first started, I was like, oh, I want that lens. That's sweet. Oh, we're going to get a better shot. It's like, will you actually be able to make more money? Will a client hire you because you're able to get that shot? Or is that just like a selfish, creative goal to be able to want to get that kind of a shot? And if you can translate it to say, no, this is going to make us money, or this is going to save us time. I mean, there are plenty of things like, even like upgraded hard drives that could speed up your transferring, 10x or something like that. I mean, today versus 20 years ago when I started there, the amount of time of like everything it's so much faster today in a lot of ways. But sometimes it's like incremental speed, and it's like, okay, we're gonna have to have this thing or be doing this for like 3 years before it finally pays for itself. But getting in that mindset where you can start to try and equate what is this piece of gear, this software, moving into a studio, what do all of those things, what opportunities could they create? And is it more like, hey, I'm a super optimist, that's me, and says like, yeah, I think we'd be able to, land this kind of client if we had a studio or if we had that camera or that thing. Or is it like, no, you've tested the market, you've seen it, you know that it's possible if you have this thing, but to your point, having somebody else alongside that you're not answering to necessarily, but somebody that's just holding your feet to the fire, say like, tell me how that's going to help. If you don't have that person, at the very least, ask yourself and try to figure that out, because at the end of the year, if you get to the end of the year and your accountant or H&R Block or whatever is like, hey, you owe X amount in taxes and you don't have it, it's like, oh, maybe you shouldn't have bought that thing.
Yeah, that's another piece. Hopefully you're having someone on your team that can do some proactive tax planning to at least say, okay, on average, based on what we saw last year in the business, this is what your average, expected tax rate's going to be. So you can at least be setting some of that aside as you're going throughout the year. So that's a whole other conversation just around tax planning. But even just getting in a position where you don't have to feel stressed out about the financial piece of your business. Like if you really put it through that wants versus needs analysis and how it might actually bring additional revenue, additional growth to the firm, that's a really important lens to run it through first. And then as you're building off of that, any decision that you're making about the business, especially if you're a more established entrepreneur, you're trying to decide if you invest in team members. As you were talking about with technology, like sometimes you can find tech to do the job for you at a very reasonable, scalable cost. And then other times you really need that extra legit person. An AI agent isn't going to do the trick. You might need someone else that you're hiring on your team. And I know you've gone through a lot of iterations with your business of staffing and office space or I guess production space. But all of those decisions come with long-term consequences, right? You're not signing a lease for 6 months. You're signing a long-term lease when you decide to have that production studio. So just even being able to take the numbers of where you're at currently, but then project out into the future. What is this going to look like on the long-term trajectory, and how much more revenue do we have to bring in to actually offset those extra costs?
Yeah. I remember when we were at like our peak with staff, I think I had like 9 people. And I don't even think we had hit a million in revenue yet at that point. And I'm just like, I look back and I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? Because it just felt like that's how I was making decisions. Like, oh man, if we had somebody doing that would feel pretty good. Or man, if somebody was doing this, that would feel good. It's like, get your feelings out of here. Let's talk about data and number. This is when somebody like you is really, really helpful, because I can feel like I'm overwhelmed, but when we break it all down, it's like, okay, well, how many hours are you working, or is everybody working overtime? And if so, how much are you charging? Are you actually making enough money? All of those decisions. But back when we had like 9 people, it's like we were not keeping there was no profit. It was all the money was being spent. Super hard to grow, super hard to plan for, mistakes and all that stuff. It's so funny. And then when COVID happened, we shrinkaged to 4 people. And we figured out how to run this company, the same company,
leaner,
with 4 people. And we've grown really slowly since then. And it's been very calculated since then. And oh my goodness, we're like so much more profitable these days. Like we've got money left over. Unfortunately, there's work, as well, but not having 8 people that, I've got to
stress
pay
about payroll
week.
every time.
Yeah, that's like, not fun at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the beauty. Like, I think some people who have grown larger businesses and grown very quickly with their team size end up like yourself, like realizing, hey, this isn't what it's cut out to be. Maybe we could operate on a leaner, smaller team. We just have the right people in the right spots taking on those kinds of responsibilities. And it's an evolution, and sometimes you have to do a little trial and error to figure it out.
Yep, lots of error over here. Lots of trialing, lots of erroring, lots of shrinkaging, and realizing that, this actually feels like so much better. For the longest time, not every, but so many of the business books that I have, it's like all about growth, and it's the name of this show. And I started another 10x filmmaker. That stuff sounds like, like hire, get bigger, all this stuff. Now, when I look at those words and what they mean to me, it's like, no. Like, what if we could like 10x your freedom, or 10x your profit, or
your time,
10x your sanity? It's like all of that stuff. It's not about more people, more bodies. Like that's not what I'm trying to build. I know some people want that and are building that, and they are successful at that. I had to kind of pump the brakes and say, like, is that really what I want? Do I want more people to manage? No. If somebody else could manage them, maybe. But let's reassess, like, let's redo this. And the way that we're growing right now, it's like, I don't have a desire to have 10 people. If we don't need 10 people, great. Like that's not what success means. That's not what growth means. We can build a really profitable business, and I can have a very healthy salary with a small team. And that can be enough.
I'm glad you mentioned profitability, because that's another area I think a lot of people get tripped up when it comes to numbers. They think about top line revenue, right? The income that's coming in, and they're not always looking at those expenses, but really the profit is where it's at. If you're a profitable company, you're going to have that extra cash flow to either reinvest in the business or use on the personal side. And it's a great position to be in when you're always in a cash flow negative situation, or payroll's such a huge stress every single pay period. Then you're in this cycle of like hamster wheel, where you can't get off the hamster wheel, and you feel really stuck. And it's so crucial to think about profit as your bottom line. That's the number that we need to really focus on, especially as you're actively running the business. And revenue, great. It's a fun vanity metric, but it doesn't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. So I would love for us to break this down. I would love for you to talk to me like I'm 5.
Okay.
And when you say top line revenue, profit, like how does that help me? Like if I make $10,000 in a month, I'm like, sweet, I just made $10,000. This is great. Like,
sure.
How do we need to understand profit in a way that is like, this is the thing that's keeping me on this hamster wheel? Explain that if you would.
Yeah. So the revenue, when you said 10,000 a month, that's the revenue. That's the income coming into the business. Okay. On average, 10,000 a month is 120,000 of revenue a year. Well, let's say you're paying yourself, let's just say you're structured as an S Corp, okay? So for tax purposes, you're going to draw a salary as the owner, and then additionally, you're going to get owner draws if there's profit left over in the business. So let's say your salary as the owner is 60,000 a year. Okay, that's half of the top line revenue. So then you have another 60,000 that's left that other expenses might flow into. So let's just say you have an assistant that you're paying 40,000 a year. We'll use round numbers here. So now that profit is the 120 minus the 60 minus the 40 that you're paying that assistant. So it's 120 minus 100. That's 20,000 a year
Right.
of profit.
20,000
if you had no
That's
other expenses, which we always have other expenses.
Okay.
Right? So let's just say you're paying 5,000 a year for software. Maybe you're in a situation where you don't have a studio or production site, so you're just going from job to job and videotaping on the go. But let's say your equipment costs are another $5,000 a year. Software, equipment, any other just ancillary miscellaneous expenses. So now you're down to 10,000 of profit for the year, right? Because you have the 100,000 that you're paying yourself, you're paying the assistant, and then 10,000 of additional expenses. So now you're down to 10,000 of profit a year on that $120,000. That's less than a 10% profit margin. That's not actually a very healthy business, to be honest. Because at most, your owner draw, what you could take out above and beyond your salary is the 10,000. Okay. Now, let's say you're that same 120,000 of revenue business a year, and you just operate it really leanly. You don't have other team members. You don't have, let's just say you still have the same equipment, software costs, things like that, and you're paying yourself the 60,000. So 60 of your salary plus 10,000, that's 70,000 total. 120 minus 70 is 50,000. You could pay yourself another 50,000 in draws as an S corp owner, and you're then bringing your take home pay then is the 100 or the 60 plus the 50. So you're 110,000 versus being able to take out closer to 70,000 on the year. That's a huge difference. So again, when you're thinking about just investments, costs, is it really necessary? Is this additional person? Is this additional product? Whatever it is this going to actually benefit the business? And maybe by hiring that additional assistant, you could grow that revenue to 200,000 a year. Maybe, I don't know. But those are the kinds of things you have to be thinking about when you're making these business decisions.
Yeah. So you talked about the hamster wheel, and that's where I think, if you get to the end of the year and you've paid yourself this salary, the $60,000, and then everything else was tied to an expense, whether it was your assistant, gear, software, all the stuff, and that cost $60,000. So you made $120,000. You sold $120,000 of business, deposited it in your account. You took 60. It cost 60 to run it, $120K total. Then you start from zero again the next year.
Exactly.
And you start that same thing. And actually things got a little bit more expensive, right? So if you haven't increased your what you charge, and you're still only making 120 and you're paying yourself 60, you're not going to be able to buy as many pizzas because they got a little bit more expensive.
Right.
Your assistant's like, things got a little more expensive. Can I get a raise? Okay. So then there's less for the gear or the software. So then you keep the gear that you have, and things start to break. And then you're like, wait, things can't break because I don't have any extra money at the end of the year because it's already been assigned to these areas. So I think that's the hamster wheel that you're talking about.
Precisely.
When there's no margin,
right?
There's no margin for error.
No.
You got to figure out how to edit more efficiently so that you're finding time there, or how can you charge, a little bit more. But if you get to the end of the year and there's no margin, you can't hire somebody to help you. You can't,
and you just bought yourself another job, really. I mean, you're not truly an entrepreneur if you're always beholden to the, hey, this is the max I can get as my salary or owner, whatever, and then never grow that over time. So one of the rewards, the potential rewards of entrepreneurship should be that ability to grow your income over, year over year.
What would you say would be and this is probably a case by case thing, but just a rough idea for a video production service business. What is a healthy margin that we should aim for when we're trying to
Yeah.
aim for margin?
With a lot of service-based businesses, you can actually get pretty nice margins. I would say like a gross margin of like 30% at least is a good target. It could be even higher than that. I know in my practice as a CPA and financial planner, I do a analysis of my gross margin. It's closer to 60% on the year. But again, I'm very intentional about team members and running a very lean operation on the expense side. So, yeah, it really can vary tremendously, but I would say at least shoot for 30%, but try to grow that number over time. So even if we just put it
Yeah.
as a simple example of 100,000 of revenue, 30% gross margin is going to be 30,000 a year. That's an extra leftover piece.
Mhm. Yeah. So I think one of the tricks that I learned early on, and I've not done this flawlessly by any means, but adding an additional bank account so that I don't just have an operating account.
Mhm.
That was one of the most helpful things because like, I deposited a $20,000 check. I think, hey, I've got $20,000 to spend, but I've got to remember,
Mhm.
oh, actually a percentage of that needs to be saved for taxes because I'm going to have a tax bill.
Mhm.
And then a percentage of that I'm just trying to save so that we have some margin at the end of the day. If it's in this account, there's a good chance that it's going to get spent because I'm not earmarking it for anything. I just see one account. Okay, yeah, it looks like we've got enough for the new camera. Let's buy it. Deb, it's embarrassing to think about all of the times where I could look at the bank account and say like, yeah, I feel good about where we're at.
Mhm.
Projections would be like, oh, well, we don't have anything else coming in for like, who knows how long? Like, so you're going to spend $5,000 or $10,000 on some stuff without assurance that there's more coming in,
Mhm.
and then I'd get surprised with a tax bill. It's like, well, shoot, it's
Mhm.
just like Christmas. It comes every year. So does the tax bill. So what am I doing proactively to save for that? So any ideas or advice? I remember like my PTSD moment in this world where I didn't have an advisor. I was just on my own for the first 2 years, 3 years.
Mhm.
And I got a tax bill for like
Wow.
$15,000.
Yeah.
And that in my mind, I'm like, I'm broke. How
Mhm.
in the world am I going to pay a
Yes.
$15,000 tax bill?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things on the tax planning side to prevent that from happening to you. So number one, anytime you're looking at your prior tax liability, there should be a calculation if whether you're self preparing or you're getting it prepared by someone else, where they do like estimated tax for the next year, and they usually base it off of the prior year. So let's just say your business at that point grew significantly, which it probably did, you want to be kind of looking at, okay, what was that tax rate that I had as my effective tax rate in that prior year? So let's just suppose overall you had 20% of your net profit. That's what you paid in as your tax rate for federal purposes. So that same 20% you would apply to like extra dollars. When you see that your business overall profit is going up, you want to be allocating an extra 20% as a reserve for new taxes. Now, with estimated taxes, you don't have to pay them in right away throughout the year, but usually a good tax preparer is going to have you do what's called safe harbor, where they're having you pay in off of the prior tax year, and then they'll always do some kind of year-end tax projection to really say, okay, this is what we think is going to be owed as of April 15th of that following tax year, and let's formulate a plan to get that money saved between now and April. So usually by November or December, a good tax preparer is going to be able to really have a decent idea of what your business income is going to look like. So again, that's part of the planning process, just making sure you're being proactive and not just oh, okay, I know I'm doing better, but I don't need to really set anything aside for it in the meantime.
How about this story? How about, I paid a lot of money for CPA, former CPA, this past
Mm-hmm.
year. How about it wasn't until tax time came and I submitted, we did all of our stuff, and then they're like, okay, well, so the amount that you owe is $28,000. And I was like, what? Like, what do you, what do you,
Yeah.
I haven't paid taxes.
Right.
I shouldn't say I haven't paid taxes. I thought taxes were optional. Just kidding. I have not had a tax bill like that. I've had like, $5,000, $6,000, maybe we got $1,500 back. It's always been like pretty close. $28,000 with no notice, except for, hey, taxes are done. Here's what you're going to owe. And I was like, are you serious?
Yeah, that's
That stuff
a really
happens.
unfortunate situation. Yeah, it is, and it's hard because it's usually they're going to be communicating in some kind of engagement letter, or if they're doing any kind of like ongoing bookkeeping for the business, they should be telling you and preparing you along the way that this is going to be a bigger liability. So like when we're doing bookkeeping or year-round accounting work for our clients, we're actively monitoring and kind of seeing, okay, compared to last year, where are we at profit-wise? And then we're having discussions even like this time of year to say, are there any big expenditures we should be doing as tax breaks to bring that tax bill down? So it might be purchasing a vehicle for the business, where they did recently change the rules with the One Big Beautiful Act. So it's more advantageous now from a tax deductibility thing. But even just like getting the business vehicle, if you're doing a lot of travel, and let's just say you're not, you don't have the studio and you're going to different sites, you could be deducting that business travel. So it makes sense to possibly have your vehicle as a business vehicle. Those kinds of things, unfortunately, if you have someone like that, you do need to find someone new, because they should never have just surprised you with a $28,000 federal tax bill. That is really unfortunate.
So it was federal and state combined.
Federal
so
and
it wasn't
state
just federal
combined, but still, that's a very large number to not prepare you for in advance. At the very least, they should have been doing some kind of year-end tax projection to tell you that back in like December or January at the absolute latest. Finding a new person is the key there.
Yeah. So one thing that we've been doing since then is we did get our quarterly projections or estimates. And so instead of waiting till the end of the quarter and just like, okay, what do we have extra in the account to pay this, this amount? What I'm doing every single week is I'm transferring
a portion to a tax reserve account,
a few $100 into this account. Like, so every week. And so it doesn't, I could get to the end of the month. And again, like if the bank account says, hey, you've got, $30,000 in there, I'm like, oh, cool. Like we've got room. We can, but if it doesn't say it, I'm just going to feel like, man, to move $1,000 or $2,000, that seems like I'm going to make a big dent in our overall, but $400 a week, that doesn't feel like very much.
Yeah.
And to just keep doing that. And I'm looking at our tax account now, and I'm like, oh baby, like bring on those quarterlies. I'm like ready to direct deposit right from that account. Right, we're not touching it for anything else. It's straight up. It's for taxes. So that feels good, and it's like finally we have a good practice and a good rhythm for that, so that we don't end up getting totally screwed. If mid-year last year, my CPA said, hey, just a reminder, there's a chance that you're going to have like this kind of a bill next year. Guess what I would have been doing? I would have done the same. I would have been putting money in that account, but I had no idea. We just.
I'm sorry you had to go through that. That's really,
Thanks.
it's not a fun spot to be in.
Yeah. So, what's your experience with Profit First? Like, are you a McCallowitz fan?
Yeah, I was going to bring up that book. It's a good book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend reading it. It does talk about 4 different accounts. One, that main operating account. I'm not a huge fan of having like 4 different accounts just because I feel like there's a little bit too much complexity with that. So I like the principles behind the book and the methodology, but I'm not like, hey, I think you have to have each of these, especially if you're like more of an established business owner that's feeling pretty comfortable, like setting aside some savings, and it doesn't have to be specifically the tax reserve account. I also
Mhm.
encourage people too, like if they're building that tax reserve account, ultimately it's going to come from your personal taxes. Even if your tax is an S corp, you're going to be paying that bill through a personal account anyway. Might as well maybe get it into a personal high yield savings account so it can earn some interest while it's waiting.
So, what's interesting about
Mhm.
that is, we just last year signed up for Relay.
Mhm.
So I've got a Relay account. Our tax account
Mhm.
is a savings account,
Yep.
and it's like making money.
Yep.
The other thing that's been really helpful, and McCallowitz doesn't talk about this, but I created a account for our contractors.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
here's the perfect example. We booked this. I think it was a $90,000 project, and so we got a huge
Yep.
deposit, right? 70%
Mhm.
to book us.
Yeah.
Well, this project ended up, we were supposed to film in July. They said, oh, you know what? Everything has changed. We're going to have to postpone the shoot until January of
Mhm.
like this upcoming
Right.
January. And I'm like, that kind of stinks because we were looking forward to that, the remainder
Sure.
of that account, what they owed us. But what I did when we booked that project, I calculated it's across the country. So, there's lots of travel. It's 3 days of production. We bid out this job. We've got budgeted what we're going to pay our contractors, and we know that amount.
Mhm.
And it's like I think it's at least with some gear rentals and stuff, we're at like $12,000.
Okay.
So I just took that entire amount, $12,000, and immediately put it in our contractor
Yeah. I
account.
love that. Mhm.
And because we've been in that spot, two things. We do 70-30, so 70% to book us, 30% on
Mhm.
delivery. We used to do 50-50, and so it was really nice to get that
Extra.
remaining
Mhm.
50%. But what we found is like some clients drag their feet, some
Mhm.
projects, if there's multiple deliverables, it just takes forever to get to that finish line. So let's do more upfront, smaller on the back
Mhm.
end. But what we were doing mistakenly was because we were only getting 30% when we were getting that money, we're like, sweet, we got 30%. And then it's like, oh no, now we got the contractor's invoice. We got to pay the contractor.
Right.
And we got some other expenses that came along the way. So 30%, it's gone.
Mhm.
It's basically none of ours. It's all earmarked.
Mhm.
So now we're like, okay, let's make sure that we're, saving as much of that as possible, especially if we've budgeted the project out
Mhm.
appropriately. We can put a good amount in that contractor savings. So anyway, just I'm rambling, but
No, I'm glad you brought it up too, especially even with like the 70% upfront, because that's another area, cash flow becomes an issue for a lot of business owners at every stage. And being able to collect more upfront is always going to be more advantageous, especially if you're doing what you are now doing, which
yeah.
is allocating those expenses and saying, hey, we're going to put this aside in a separate account. So we're not touching it. It's available and ready to go when we need it down the road.
Big mistake though when we first started doing that was during I think it was either right before COVID or it was during COVID. And my operations person, we were just excited, like, oh, we just got 70%
Uh-huh.
and it would go into our operating account. We didn't have another account. So, well, there's money in there. Okay, so we're good to spend this. And then, man, we got hit really hard on the back end
Mm.
of things when it came time to pay contractors. And then it was like, okay, well, how much are you saving for taxes? It's like, shoot, we didn't put any of this in like a tax thing or
Mhm.
whatever. So putting in those buckets,
Mhm.
man, it's been so helpful. Less surprises, and I don't know, just it feels more secure.
Mhm, and usually it's like the more online accounts, not the brick and mortar as much, that those banks will allow you to easily set up multiple accounts and
Yeah,
transfer. Like I do
yeah.
Capital One for a lot of personal savings, and we have all these, different savings accounts, but I can see them all in one view, but it still just gives me visibility and separation. And mentally, that's a lot better to have that delineation for sure.
My brick and mortar, when I walk in there, they always roll their eyes. They're like, here comes the guy with all the accounts. So, it's funny, but I've since started an account on Relay, and I'm like, man, you guys, the technology is 100 times better than what you guys have going on. They are a profit first, like friendly bank. So they get it, and you guys don't. And I'm like, man, it's a lot easier to work with these guys. So they've got there's room for improvement with the brick and mortar
Thanks.
Otherwise, they're not going to be around for much longer. Deb, this is super good. I'm just re-encouraged, and I know we haven't talked about profit first in a long time. We haven't talked about being proactive with your finances versus reactive. So I think you've given us some good things to think about. If people are interested in learning more about all things Deb Meyer and your podcast, and where can people find you? How can they follow along? And maybe if they're looking for a CPA or something like that, are you open for biz?
Okay, yeah, sure. So please listen to Beyond Budgets podcast. It's on Apple, any major podcast app. And then Worthy Nest is the main website, WORTHYNEST.com. And yes, I am a CPA open for some new client relationships, but usually what we do best is when we're handling both the business and the personal finance, helping overlap on both. That's where we find the most efficiencies in just being that trusted advisor to small business owner parents.
Love it.
Yeah.
You guys are making a difference. Appreciate you coming on and sharing today. It's good to get some time with you. Good to see your face again. And last time we were hanging out at the studio. Before that, I think we were in South Carolina. I'm not sure where we were at. Somewhere with Mike Kim and gang.
Yeah, it was Effingham, Illinois.
Yes, Effingham. Yes, if you can believe that name. It's a place, everybody. It's a place. Anyway, thank you for being here. Appreciate everything today, and just excited for all that you got going on.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Grow Your Video Business podcast. If you got something out of today's conversation, do me a favor, share it with a friend or post it on your socials. Tag me at Ryan Coral or at Grow Your Video Business. I'd love to know what resonated with you. If you've got a question or takeaway, drop a comment wherever you're listening or watching this. You can also shoot me a message. I read every single one. And hey, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. We've got more stories, strategies, and behind the scenes insights coming your way to help you build a business that you love. Keep creating, keep sharing your story, and keep showing up. I'm cheering you on. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you next time.